Hi everyone. Okay, this is just a quick video about question 2 in paper 1, EDUQAS GCSE English language. So question 2. First thing it tells us is to read lines 7 to 13. Remember, that's really important. We want to make sure that we're using the right lines, so I would highlight that. Look at my question. What impression do you get of Mason in these lines? Okay, I'm looking for impressions of Mason. So basically, what do I think about him? The exam paper is always going to say you must refer to the language used in the text to support your answer using relevant subject terminology where appropriate. That is to remind you that you need to quote the text. Remember, I'm going to turn this red because in my examples in our lessons, I always put my quotations in red. Hopefully that will remind you that you need to quote the text. You can see that this question's worth 5 marks. So we're looking for 5 different points supported by 5 different quotes. So 5 different impressions of Mason, and we need to support those impressions with quotes. I recommend you do not spend any longer than 10 minutes on this question. I know it's a 5-mark question, but remember you've got to do a little bit more here than you had in the first question. You've got to write your inference, and then you've got to use your quotes. It might take you a bit longer. First thing we need to do is we need to read lines 7 to 13. So line 7 starts here, what we've already highlighted for that last question. So enchanted, eyes like a child's as the waves vaulted along the rooftops of the submerged houses. He stood transfixed. He felt no alarm for the drowned people who were sleeping undisturbed in their salty beds. Eventually, the waves began to recede in the deep bowl of illuminated water which drew down the emptying streets. Mason ran forwards across the expiring bubbles, as if trying to catch the water, but the sea shrank away from him, disappearing around the corners of the houses and sliding below the garage doors. Exhausted, Mason returned to his bed, the sound of the dying waves filling his head as he slept. Okay, now it did say, remember, 7 to 13, so that is where I'm going to stop. I'm not going to go beyond there. So actually, only a paragraph, and we've got to find 5 impressions of Mason out there. So I'm going to start you off with the first one. It says that he looked enchanted, eyes like a child. That is going to be the first thing I'm going to pull out from line 7. What impression do I get of Mason if it says he's enchanted, eyes like a child's? Well, if somebody is enchanted, it usually means that they are fascinated with something, doesn't it? So that might be the first thing that I say. It also said his eyes like a child's. Again, that makes me think of him thinking that this is something wondrous, something that he is fascinated and transfixed by. I'm imagining his eyes are wide like a child's would be. So that is what I'm going to try and say. Reference points, I'm going to start with firstly, and I'm going to repeat the question. I get the impression that Mason fascinated by what he can see, and then I'm going to give the quote. Always check the quote. Don't make things up that aren't actually there. Enchanted, eyes like a child's. Okay, brilliant. That's the bit that I'm going to put. Enchanted, eyes like a child. And that's it. That's my first point. So I get the impression that Mason is fascinated by what he can see, enchanted, eyes like a child's. Because the quote helps me infer that he's fascinated. When I start my next one, I might start with, secondly, I will go back to my text and I would keep reading. The next bit of that quote you can see is not about Mason at all. It's about the landscape that he's looking at. Okay, but again, we have something about him right here in this first line. So carry on reading, read again, find 5 different things, 5 impressions of Mason, and 5 different quotes to support them. Write them here on your answer sheet. Remember, you might want to set a timer on your phone, 10 minutes. Don't go beyond the 10 minutes. But question 2, it's 5 marks, no more than 10 minutes.